Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Show with your host, Jeff Lopes, where we bring you the world's top athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, influencers, and their journeys to success.
We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Matt Brown. What is up, brother?
Oh, everything's up, man. We're on the up and up. Everything's going good.
This is awesome. This is gonna be a fun conversation. Usually when I bring on guests, I don't really do any research on their background. I want it more to be as natural of a conversation as possible. About an hour ago, I just literally went on Wikipedia and I was like, there's little things I was reading about your upbringing, stuff like that I had no clue of. I knew you as a UFC fighter. I knew like how badass, how tough you are, and everything you've done with your 13 knockouts. But it's so crazy, your upbringing and all that. So I want to get into how you got into martial arts, but also how you got your nickname. There's so many stories there. So to start off with, Matt Brown, where'd you grow up and do you have any siblings? Like, how was childhood?
I grew up in a town no one's ever heard of. Last time I looked on Wikipedia, it had a population of 200. So wow. No one's ever heard of it. It's in the middle of nowhere, about 2 hours from the nearest like big city. There's like smaller cities, that are closer, but about 2 hours from the largest city. Had two brothers, but it was nice, like I was in the middle of the three, but there's a lot about it that was kind of cool, man, that I kind of missed where, you just go out in the morning and do what you want to do all day. And then you got to, mom tell you be home by the time the sun goes down, by the time the street lights would come on. That was the rule of the street lights. You kind of just do whatever you want, man, and just hang out. We kind of knew all the neighbors knew us. And, it was very, how would you say it? Like the neighbors would punish me, like if I got in trouble, right? Like they see me do something wrong. They'd be like, go home. And, I'm going to tell your mom to ground you, so it was like,
it was a very tight community.
Yeah. Very tight knit and very, very conservative, very down home. Yeah. So it was pretty cool, man. There was a lot of good about it. And then there was the bad about it too, where, at least for people like me, I think most of us grew up kind of assuming that, this is where we're going to be for the rest of our lives, right? Most people, like my dad owned a business. He owned a machine shop. My uncles owned businesses. One did horseshoe type stuff or stuff for horses. One of them owned a welding shop. And I think most of us kind of grew up kind of thinking like, this is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. Whatever our parents did, we're going to do the same thing. A lot of farmers and stuff like that. And for me, that wasn't enough for me. I was much more ambitious, but I always felt trapped there. Like, cause I knew that this wasn't the life for me, but at the same time, I didn't really know how to get out. And I think that was kind of what turned me towards drugs and partying. And, I just wanted to experiment and do something crazy. I didn't want to live that kind of conservative down home, come home to your wife and family after your 9 to 5 every day and work all day and all that shit. I had a very entrepreneurial spirit from the youth and, love grinding and working hard. So, I think I kind of carried a lot of that energy into the partying, and that was what led to the overdose, which led to my nickname, which we can get into also if you want. But, I think that was, that lack of direction. And then eventually I found the martial arts and found the direction in my life that I wanted to pursue. And that gave me, everything that I've ever had, man. The martial arts is what saved my life. The martial arts is what's created me as a person. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I've said it for many years now. Like I married the sport and I'm a martial artist for life and I'm going to die on those mats one day.
So let's get, I'm going to dive into it quickly behind there, a little backstory there. So you see that a lot. I mean, you see that a lot with small towns, even in Canada. You get a small town, kids, are outdoors a lot. They're very mischievous. They don't have a lot to do, and drugs play a big part. These small towns, drugs are usually a higher part. Pregnancy in young women are a higher rate because there's not a lot to do, and they get themselves in trouble, right? So, a small town like that, like you wouldn't. I mean, from the outside, you think a small wholesome town like that, you wouldn't think drugs getting into it, and hardcore drugs. You picture weed or whatever, but hardcore drugs. When did you start diving into the hardcore stuff? Because I was just reading like heroin and like that's some hardcore shit. Like when did you start diving into it, and what period of age were you from when to when till you had that almost overdose?
It was right after high school. Yeah, again, just no direction, and I didn't want to be, I didn't want to take over my dad's shop. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to live the life that those people were living. I wanted to get to the big city, and my only exposure to the big city was the drug dealers, right? So that's where we would have to go to, like Dayton or Xenia, which to me was a really big city, even though it was just kind of a average, small city. But to me, that was the big city, and that was my exposure to it. That's how I could get there.
And did that lead to, when you get into martial arts, how did you push from that direction to martial arts? Was it something where you used to get in a lot of fights and then it kind of led into that direction? It did, huh? So that's something. Were you ever in trouble with the law?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so I was in trouble with the law a lot. I actually just went over my record not too long ago because I'm considering being a firefighter, and they do a lot of personal history. So I had to go find all of my personal history, and I filled up about 2 full pages of criminal acts. They're all like small stuff, misdemeanors, like, a lot of drinking and weed and, small things like that. Nothing major, but, anyway, I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, it turned to martial arts because I got really fucking lucky, to be honest. So in this small town, there was one guy that he was sort of like that. I don't know, like fake sensei type guy. Right?
The ones that just touch you and you fall over.
Yeah, one of those guys, kind of, right. But he exposed me to the martial arts, right? So he had the VHSs of the UFC and stuff. And I used to love Tank Abbott. That was my dude. I was like, he's one of us, man. Like he's a fucking bar brawler, Yeah. But I remember the first one I watched was when he got knocked out by Vitor Belfort. And I was like, oh, well, he's one of us, but there's more to it than that. So he actually took us to a fight one night, and what happened there was he was supposed to be his brother or cousin, something like that, was supposed to be fighting Wes Sims. If you remember Wes Sims.
Yeah.
Right, so this is before Wes was in the UFC, and he was supposed to be fighting him. Wes didn't end up showing up that night, but this was literally like before commissions and everything, around 2000. And this was like what you'd see in the movies, where there was guys smoking cigars, like, betting on the fights, and like literally a movie scene. Yeah. And the promoter or cage announcer, whatever, comes on the mic and he says, "Hey, who wants to fight the champion? He's undefeated, blah, blah, blah." And we were doing a lot of coke that night. So I was pretty fired up, and I said, "I'll fight that son of a bitch. Let's go." So I ran across the street. There was a sporting goods store over there. I went over and bought me a mouthpiece. I borrowed my friend's cup because Wes didn't show up. So he had a cup that I could borrow, which was, in retrospect, maybe not the best idea. There was a restaurant across the street also. So I went there and used their microwave to boil and bite the mouthpiece, come back, paid $30, fought that dude about an hour later and beat him. So I thought that I was the baddest dude on the fucking block. Thought the sky's the limit for me. I'm the man. So we come back maybe, I don't know, 2-3 months later, they're all pumping me up around the town. Like, "Bro, you're the fucking man. Like you did it, So I'm like, yeah, we go back, and I ended up fighting another guy who was actually about to go pro and was like a legit fighter. And he beat the absolute hell out of me, just mauled me to pieces. His compliments to me after the fight was like, "Bro, like I couldn't knock you out, man. You're a tough son of a bitch." And I was like, all right, well, that's great to know, but maybe I should learn how to fight. So I ended up deciding that I really wanted to do this, knowing that this is a real sport and this is something that maybe I do have a little bit of potential for. So I decided, okay, I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to quit partying, quit everything. My brother happened to live in Columbus, Ohio. He was going to art college here, so he had a place for me to stay. And I called him. I said, "Look, man, I want to." I think I called him from a payphone back then. We didn't have cell phones. I called him and said, "Man, I want to get out of this. Like, can you help me out? Can I just come stay with you, until I get on my feet a little bit?" And so I moved up here, found a real gym where there's real pros training.
What was the first gym you trained at there? What was the name of it?
Well, it was called Bo Kimley's something or rather. He was like a karate guy or something, but these other pros were training out of his gym.
Yeah.
Right. So I show up, and this was actually the Hammer House. This was Mark Coleman's shit.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But he never had an actual facility. Right. So it was like some of his guys that were just training out of these different places. And he never actually showed up back then, but there was a couple guys that I met. One of them was my current coach, Dorian Price.
Yeah.
And he's been over to Thailand back and forth. So he was the first one to teach me about Muay Thai that first day that I walked in there. But that first day I walked in there, these guys are getting ready for a real show. I think it was a IFL, IFC, something. It was a real show, in an arena.
It was probably the IFL. That was huge. With the teams?
It wasn't the team. That came later. This was long before that. I don't remember exactly, but a lot of the Militich guys were on it. One of them was fighting one of the Militich guys. I mean, Lawler was on it, Tim Sylvia.
Okay.
So this is a big show back in the day. I think maybe Shogun might have fought on it once or something.
Yeah.
But either way, it was a big show. I could look it up and figure it out. But the point is, these are real pros, right? So I go in there, and then that first day I learned what getting the shit beat out of me really was, right? I thought I got the shit beat out of me in the ring, but the way these guys toyed with me and tossed me around just opened my eyes. But I loved it to death. And I said, and that day was the last day that I ever questioned whether I'm going to do this sport for life or not. Like I always say, that day I married the sport, and I said, I'm not looking back. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to fucking die trying.
How old are you then?
23.
Are you ready to unlock your full potential? I want to introduce you to the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, a powerful resource to transform your life today. With expert interviews, practical tips, and inspiring stories, this podcast is your roadmap to lasting wellness. Here's what a listener has to say.
I used to struggle with my health, but this podcast changed everything. It's like having a personal trainer, nutritionist, and life coach totally for free.
With over 2,000 five-star reviews, we're a podcast you can trust. The Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
And you're 42 now, so you've been at it 20 years almost.
Almost 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, fuck. 42 and you're still at it. You're just a couple of years younger than me. I'm 46. Okay. So you're 1980, 40, 81. Fuck.
But you know what? I think there's a little bit of advantage. Like the fact a lot of my longevity in the sport, I think, comes from starting a little bit later too. Like I didn't really do athletic stuff in high school that much, so I didn't beat up my body in high school. I mean, the drugs and stuff weren't good for it, obviously, but it wasn't beating up my joints. It wasn't tearing up my back and my neck and all these things. Like a lot of these wrestlers come.
The injuries are tons of injuries, especially you're saying with wrestlers, necks and traps and upper backs and stuff like that. How many amateur fights did you have before you went pro?
I had like 16 total, counting the kickboxing.
And when did you turn pro? How old are you when you turned pro?
24.
So it was like a few years later.
I think it was 24. I want to say, but I mean, I only trained about a year, maybe 2 years. As an amateur, again, but it was just a different world back then, like
100%.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of guys. There was guys. I know one guy who fought for the Hammer House, so to speak, right? Quote unquote. I seen him at 3 shows: Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Like he literally fought 3 days in a row. Like this is just the world we were in back then. Like, that's how guys would do it. We would just sign up. Like I fought in gas station parking lots. I fought in, bars, like it wasn't always like a big show or anything. My first kickboxing match was a Sanshao match, and I didn't even know what Sanshao was. Like I thought I was doing a kickboxing match.
In a sense, like a full actual ring where you could fall off.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Sanshao before?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what it is, right? So I didn't even know that there was takedowns involved. My dude told me, he's like, hey, it's a kickboxing match, be ready. So I'm just kickboxing, and the guy comes out. I actually just found this VHS recently. I need to post this thing. I need to figure out how to pull it off there and post it or something to save it digitally. He comes out, takes me down. I'm looking at the ref like, what the fuck is this, bro? Like, this isn't MMA. And so I think, okay, well, I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're wrestling. So I drop my hands and kind of get in a wrestling stance. He fucking kicks me in my head. And I'm like, what are we doing here, bro?
That's the old Pride days, right? Kicks in the head and fucking like there's the rules are very limited there. So when you're looking at that, just for people to understand, and it's still, be honest, it's still not pro MMA athletes. I mean, you got a few now that are making crazy money, but compared to the other major sports, whether there's NHL, Major League, NFL, you're still not at that comparable level for a pro athlete, giving everything that you can to their body. When you look at yourself back then, just for the audience to understand, that give our audience an understanding of what you got paid in these fights, these amateur, not even amateur, you can get paid when you turn pro, like these little fights here or there. Were you making like $250, $500 a night?
Generally, yeah. The amateur fights, I had to pay for most of those. Like,
register.
Yeah, pay to register, and that's how they would make their money. The pro fights, I think the most I ever made from a pro fight was like $1,000.
Yeah.
But I didn't care, and I tell these amateur or low level pros today, don't fucking worry about the money either. Like,
it's a passion.
Like, yeah, man, if you're in it for the money, like you're in the wrong sport.
Yeah.
Now, once you get to the UFC or Bellator or whatever, you build your name, build your brand, then you can start worrying about the money. But these low level shows, like what the fuck, $1,000 ain't changing your life, bro. Like,
no,
go out there and take the fight, go in there, fight the best you can, get your name out there, get your brand. That's what it's all about, is building your name, your brand, getting the experience. And that's sort of, people call it pro. Like, it's not really pro at those lower levels, right? It's more like a semi-pro type thing. Like, technically you're getting paid, but you're not making a living off of it. You're not really a pro until you're doing this full time, in my opinion. And I wish they would kind of figure out a way to make that more known.
There's got to be better feeder leagues. I mean, if you look at every pro league, there's always a feeder league that you're making money and it's completely associated with that league, where it's like, this is the minors, here's the big show.
Yes.
You're getting paid at a certain level. There's a certain level of insurance and for your family. Like, there's got to be something where it changes in a way, but it's hard when there's only a few big dogs monopolizing the market, right? It's never going to be easy. It's never going to be easy, right? And obviously you're employed by one, so we're not going to talk about that, but it's not easy, right? As an athlete at your level, going in there and coming out, and we're going to talk about after concussions, and there's a lot of sacrifices you're doing, and your career could be a long career like yours, or it could be a very short career. You could go in there and 1-2 fights and you're done. And I've known that. I don't know if you remember Canadian boy. God, he fought at 170, then he dropped down to 155 and went on a rampage, and he was pretty much next in line for the title. TJ Grant, ring the bell? Yeah, it's Canadian. He was next in line for the title, and in training just got a concussion. That's it. Never ever fought again. In training, had a concussion, and you think about it, like, he finally was going to get his payday. Going to fight for the title. He was going to fight. Oh God, what was his name? He ended up, I think he's still in Bellator. He's the guy that fought with a toothpick in his mouth, huge legs.
Ben Henderson.
Yes. He was going to fight Henderson, I think, for the title in the UFC, and concussion, and that was it. His done, career done. And I'm like, you make it at that. You had some epic fights. You're on a 5-fight win streak. You're doing amazing, and then so it could end like that very quickly. So when you look at, first off, when was your first call to the UFC? How did you get that call?
The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. Okay. So you did the Ultimate Fighter 2008. Who else was on that show, like name-wise, that are still around?
CB Dollaway. Amir Sadallah ended up winning the show.
Yeah.
CB was kind of projected to win the show, but CB still around. Jesse Taylor, he still fights. I don't know if you might.
Jesse Taylor, is that the guy that broke the limo doors? Window or something?
Yeah, he's a character, man. He's such a cartoon character. Amazing guy, great friend of mine. Matt Riddle was on there. He's in like WWE.
That guy made it. That guy is fucking set.
Yes.
Like, how the fuck did that guy switch over like that? And he was a very talented UFC fighter. Like, he had a lot of potential. And then when I heard he was going to WWE, and I was like, what the fuck? How is this? And he's transitioned like so perfectly. Good for him. Like, he's one of those success stories that is doing really, really well for himself. Who else was down there? And then you're saying the Dalloway. That was the Doberman, right? His nickname's the Doberman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Who else?
And the guy that won it, Amir, you said it was Amir that won it?
Yeah, Amir Sadala won it.
That guy disappeared. He was actually doing okay. He started to really focus on his Muay Thai, and he just disappeared. That was one guy I thought would be around, even as an announcer or something, because he was very charismatic the way he talked and had a good look to him. I thought he'd be around even as an announcer. He just disappeared.
Yeah, I was good friends with him, and he disappeared. I've talked to some of his coaches and stuff. Like, no one knows where he is. I mean, I know, like, one coach told me, he just wanted away from the sport, and he's still alive and doing well and everything. So he didn't like die and fall off the planet or anything, but he just wanted out of the sport, and that was all it was. That's all it was too. He just wanted out. But another name you might recognize from the show was Mike Dolce.
Mike who?
Dolce, the Dolce diet.
Yes.
Yeah, another success story. He just went a different route.
Yeah, and he's doing extremely well for himself. He works with a lot of athletes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Worked with Ronda Rousey.
He
kind of got the most famous, and Vitor Belfort.
Yeah. So let's talk about your run into the UFC, and it's obviously there's 13 knockouts. We'll talk about going for 14, but there's been losses too. Let's talk about that part. How do you turn that loss around? Like, how do you clear your head? Like, how long does it take you? This is something I talked to Chad Mendes, and it's like, when I had him on, he said that was one of the hardest things. Was it wasn't a loss; it was a disappointment for everybody else. He felt like he had everybody else he disappointed along the way, which is crazy. You think about that he thought that way. But when you lose, and we'll talk about your victories next, but when you lose, like, where's the mindset? Like, how do you reset yourself? How do you get yourself going? Is it easy for you? Is it hard for you?
It's certainly not easy. I mean, it's a fucking terrible thing, man. Like, losing sucks. Like, it's the worst thing in the world. And you kind of feel like you let people down, feel like you let yourself down. And I don't think there's ever been a fight where, win or lose, where you don't think you could have done better. There's something else that you could have done, especially when you lose. You're like, dude, I know that I had it right there. Like, it was right in the palm of my hands, and I let it go. But for me, the way that I've handled that for my whole career, and part of why it never has bothered me as much is, again, the martial arts has saved my life. I always say I'm going to die on the mats one day. I'm a martial artist for life. So I look at every fight as a martial arts competition. And this is just a picture in time of where my journey is on that day. I'm blessed that I get to get paid for it. And I'm blessed that I've put in the time and are thankful for my work ethic that I put in the time and been able to reap some rewards out of this. So, I get a brand, I get some financial compensation for it, able to feed my family and shit. But ultimately, like, when I'm out of this sport, when I'm, they call it retired, but when I move on from getting paid to do this, like, I'm still going to be on the mats every day. I'm still going to be looking to improve myself. And that's why I say I'm going to die on those mats. Like, I'm married to this shit, and this is what I'm going to do my whole life. So I can look at that fight as, okay, that's where I was on that day. Maybe if I would have fought him the day before, I would have kicked his ass, but he kicked my ass that day. Maybe if I would have woke up on a different side of the bed, who knows, right? So I've learned how to accept it without losing the commitment to the victory.
Yeah.
So I can accept whatever happens. But from day one, when I accept the fight, I'm committed to victory. And I won't accept anything less for myself than victory. But if that happens, and if that's the way, whatever higher power or God or whatever, or the way fate works out or whatever, that's fine. I can accept that. That's where my martial arts was on that day. Let's go make it better.
I love that. So one thing about you, and I want to ask you this, and I've asked a couple other athletes, if you take, for example, a major league pitcher, he's on the mound, and if you see, like, there's so many movies, you'll see this where the pitcher just zones out, and all of a sudden the crowd just quiets down, and they're just focused. When you're in there, one thing about you, I mean, I've watched a lot of UFC. I've watched a lot of fights in my time. And you see certain guys, you go in there and it's like, sometimes they have a fear in their eyes, or they just have that anxiety. You could tell they're in there. When you're in there, you just look like you want to kill somebody. You look like a damn serial killer. Like, where is your mind when you get in there? Like do you zone everything out? Like, get in. I want to get into Matt's mind. Like, are you just angry? Like, you just want to hurt the person? Like, where's your mind when you're in there? Because you look. The only way you can describe it is like you're in a serial killer mode. Like, I'm here to defeat you. I'm here to beat the crap out of you. Where's your mindset when you get in there and when the cage closes down?
Yeah, so it's like I was just talking about. It's all about accepting this is what it is. And if I die in here, that's fine. If he dies, that's fine. Like, that's what we're here to do, is to try to kill the other guy. And I have to accept that that's the reality of the situation. And and I'm okay with that. And once I'm accepting of that, then I can move on towards being grateful to be in there and, let's have some fun with it. But if you're not accepting of that initial thing, then, I think you're going to have problems with that anxiety and fear altogether. And that's kind of where I go with it. But, I do a lot of self-talk practice. And I think that's something that is maybe skipped over a lot in this sport. Is like I'll do walkouts. I have a cage at my gym and I'll do walkouts just by myself on Saturday night while everybody else is out partying or hanging out with their family and shit. And, I'll put on my music, my walkout music, and I'll walk out and I'll practice that self-talk over and over again, walk out 20, 30, 40 times. So my mind is already ready for what's going to happen.
You've been there already.
Exactly. 100 times.
I love that.
And I have a specific mantras that I say to myself, and it's all about taking control, right? That's what everything in this game is about. Like, what outcomes can I control? Everything internal can be controlled. So if I don't practice controlling that, then when it goes in there, you're not going to have control of that, unless there's a lot of guys, that are just inherently good at it, right? So some guys don't need to practice it. They're just naturally good at it. Like John Jones, I don't know if he practices that. Like, he's probably very good at it naturally and has that self-belief naturally. And, one of the things... I think everybody in one way or another has to. You always hear, and I actually know, I had an interview with a gentleman that was Coach Kobe Bryant. And he actually talked about how, for example, Kobe Bryant would be in the gym 3-4 times a week doing like basic just steps side to side and just in visualization, like hockey. There's a player for he's passed away now, a Hall of Famer named Guy Lafleur, and he used to play for the Montreal Canadiens. And they said he was back then, he was a smoker, like NHL hockey player. Nowadays, these are pro athletes, but this guy used to smoke, go to the arena 2 hours before anybody would show up, sit in the stands, smoke a pack of cigarettes, and visualize the whole game. And this is going on 30 years ago. So I think in one way or another, to be at that level, you have to be able to put yourself in that situation. I love what you said too. Control the controls. That's something I talk about all the time. Like a little 2 seconds history on myself. Like, don't smoke, don't drink, super healthy, work till 5 times a week. In November, I got diagnosed with cancer, and my life went upside down. I got 2 kids, but it was November 23, November 24. It was automatic. I just flipped the switch. Mentally, I'm a very strong person. I said, control the controllables. And I took action, and my diet, my supplements, and now, knock on wood, I'm cancer free and I'm doing amazing. Did a surgery, but it's control the controllables. And I love you said that, because if everybody, doesn't matter what you do in a living in your life, if you could control the controllables, which is all we could do, and that's all you focus on, everything else will fall in this place. Yes.
So
I don't know if you say mentor, idol, whatever, is Musashi, right? Like, that's the guy that I probably study more than anybody else. And all of his stuff is very simple, but it goes way, way deeper, just like The Art of War, right? It's like very simple to read, but there's so much depth to it, right? So you have to read between the lines. And one of the things that he said that kind of changed my whole life, that was very profound for me, literally changed my whole life, was that everything is within. Yeah. Right. There's nothing outside of yourself that's going to make you bigger, faster, stronger, richer, better. It is all within. Yeah. And it goes right to like controlling the controllables. You can control everything within. You cannot control the without. So if you take care of what's within, then what's without is going to happen whether you try to change it or not, right? Because you can't control it. So again, it's about coming to acceptance, and that's what I go to first, right? And that's why, like, I've literally visualized like myself dying in the cage, because I'm like, I can accept that this is a real possibility. And now I've kind of gotten away from that as I've gotten older, as my kids and everything, because I'm like, I really don't want that to happen. But back in the day, it caused a lot of problems with relationships and stuff. Like, my wife would be like, my ex-wife now, but at the time she would say, hey, we're going to do a vacation after this fight or whatever. And I would say, well, I don't really plan on coming back. Like, I'm probably dying. I can't plan the day after. I can't plan Sunday. Like, Saturday is the last day of my life. And again, I think it makes relationships hard and makes a lot of things. It could be a negative thing, but when I walk in that cage, it's a very positive thing. Like, this is it. And I'm accepting that this is the end of the life right here. So let's give everything we got and let's see what happens. And, I guess
have you ever had an opponent like hearing that and knowing that coming from you? I mean, that's going to scare the shit out of somebody going in the cage with you, knowing that you don't give a shit if you come out alive or dead. Right. So, I mean, have you ever had conversation with your opponents before or after the fight about that?
I never have. Yeah. I never talked to them before. Like, I don't have anything to say to them. They're my enemy. And, as much as I come across as kind of a mean or, intense guy or whatever, which I can be and am a lot of the time. I can also, once I start talking to someone, like, become very friendly with them really easy. And I don't want to be friends with the guy. I don't want to like him. I don't want none of that shit. What I want is for him to be more robotic, right? I see a human with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head.
Yeah. And
I have to tear that into pieces through violence.
Have you ever had to fight somebody you know well?
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Who was it?
Actually, Amir was the first time I ever fought someone, because we were bunkmates or roommates, I'm sorry, in the Ultimate Fighter house. We were on the same team and we trained together all the time. And then I had to fight him. And that was the first one, but probably the one that was the most consequential was when I fought Mike Pyle. And so he was a late replacement. It was like 4 or 6 weeks. He had time trained, but I was supposed to fight Thiago Alves. Alves pulled out, and they called me and they said, hey, you're going to fight Mike Pyle. And I was like, well, I don't want to fight Mike Pyle. He's my friend. Like, we played video games together online all the time. And we'd actually train together a lot, and he beat the shit out of me in training. So, on one hand, I'm like, well, I don't want to fight him. He's my friend. On the other hand, I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to fight him because he also beat the shit out of me. Like, he's like a lot better than me. And he taught me a lot of things too.
Very talented guy. Very talented.
Bro, extremely, extremely talented. No one has any idea, because he wasn't as good when the lights came on. Yeah. And that was the one thing that got me through that. I knew that when the lights came on, I was a performer and he wasn't. And that was actually one of the first times with that fight where I was accepting of the outcome. That was a huge revolution for me in that fight, because I was like, I know what's going to happen if he comes out and fights me the way that we trained together. He's going to beat the shit out of me, and like, I'm going to come out with broken orbitals and broken jaws and broken arms, and like, this is going to be a fucking bad night. I'm going to the hospital. But if I go out there and accept that and I perform at my best, I can't control him, but I can control myself. So if I go out and control myself, what they say, the luck favors the brave, right? Or fortune favors the brave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I have to go out there, be courageous, be brave, step right in front of his face and throw some fucking heat, and let's see what happens. And that's what I did. And I ended up beating him pretty quickly.
How did that, was that bittersweet after? Like, how did that feel when you got back to the dressing room?
That was tough, man. Like, both of us talking to each other. I was like, man, I like you. I hate to do that. Or even like my last fight with Corey McGee, like, me and him, we'd hung out some. We weren't like close friends, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, but again, this is a cutthroat sport, man. It's lions going in there to eat. And the way I look at it, it's like, there's a bag of money outside the cage, and the one that walks out is the one that gets it. So this is for my fucking family. I'm putting food on the table doing this. So I'm coming for fucking blood, man. Whether it's going to be you or me. And sometimes it's them, right? Like, I've got some losses on my record, but I'm okay with that because I'll come back and, the next guy's going to fucking pay for it.
You're one guy we talk about it all the time. And this is way before even you're going to be on the show. The guys in the office, I mean, they're all MMA guys here, and there are certain guys you'll see in the UFC and they'll fight once, fight twice, and you're like super talented, but they're cut after 3-4 fights because they may have a 2-2 record, and it's like you're one guy. You could have the worst record and no one's going to cut you because you're so entertaining. You go there to fight, and like fans want to see that. Like you're what fans pay a ticket to watch, which is pretty amazing. I'm going to ask you one quick question, and I'll tell you why I'm asking you. How's your experience in the house? Like, and why I'm asking is, one of my friends, actually, I coach business wise. I coached him, and he's one of my just really become really good friends. Is Elliot Marshall, and he was in the UFC. Well, and he says that was the worst experience he ever did. He goes, they could pay him any money in the world, he would never ever go back to a reality show. How was your experience there? Was it really hard to be in that house with all those guys? And he said, like they put you in situations where they put a lot of booze and they get guys starting up. They want to get those arguments. Like, how hard was it to be in that house for? Is it 8 weeks or 6 weeks?
6 weeks. I'm friends with Elliot too. He coached me for a little bit, worked with him for a little.
Yeah, he's incredible. I just talked to him 2 days ago. He's such an incredible guy.
Very cool. Yeah. Me and him are still close. So I fucking loved being in the house personally.
You did, huh?
Yeah, I was like no cell phone, no TV, just train, get all the free food. I fucking loved it. Now, to be fair, when I ended up losing to Amir, who won the show, and I broke my ankle in the fight, there was about 2 weeks left. So now I have a broken ankle. I lost, and now I can't. There's nothing to do. So that last couple of weeks sucked, and so a lot of the guys had lost. So a lot of them were starting to drink a lot and fuck up the house and do stupid shit. So in that sense, that part sucked. The first 4 weeks were fucking amazing. I loved it. That like I would go 100 times because I love just being in that zone where all you're doing is training, eating, and sleeping. And that's like a dream come true for me, man. I was single at the time too. If I had kids, that would have been a completely different issue. But I did have a girlfriend, but it didn't bother me at all. I fucking loved it, man.
How much? I don't know if you're going to answer this or not, because you might not even know. But how much more do you got into this? How many fights do you think you have left in you to give it everything you have? Or are you still right now? You're still feeling like a 25-year-old, and you're going to go as long as you can.
I feel like I still have a lot more in me. Yeah. It's not a question of what I have in me because I have it in me. I got a lot more in me. I think I could probably get to like 50, to be honest. Like I think I got another 10 years. But it's not a question of, mentally and physically what I have in me. It's more time in the day where my kids are getting older. So they're
how old are your children?
I have twins that are 12 and a girl that's 7. So they take a lot of time and energy out of me. I do own my own gym now and it's doing well. I got some other things that I'm building, like some online courses and, some educational stuff. And that's sort of my goal in the second half of life is to give back. My first half of life was really like taking in everything. And, I don't consider this sport selfish. I think that's a poor way of looking at it and a poor language to use. But it is more self-centered. And we could talk about that too. I think that's an important thing for young fighters to understand.
Let's talk about that. Talk about that quickly.
It's only selfish if you make it selfish, right? If you make it all about you. But if you are taking all this stuff to be at your best, then like that's what your children and your family should expect from you is to be at your best. So my objective as a fighter is to show up at my best every single day. And that's not selfish to show up at my best every single day. Now, if I use it, now I could turn it into being selfish and, and show up at my best for myself. But I can also make it not selfish by showing up at my best no matter what.
Yeah.
And, doing any career, like men are inherently purpose driven, right? Women are kind of like more emotionally driven, and and that's why they consider it selfish, right? Because now if I am fulfilling my purpose to its fullest, that's not selfish. That's what a man is supposed to do. And if I'm able to do that to provide for my family, and I'm able to do that to show up as the best human being that I can be every day, and that's what's providing that for me, then that's not selfish at all. And now if I can turn it into being selfish if I'm a selfish person. And that's why I always say, like, this sport isn't selfish. Selfish people are selfish.
Yeah.
And there happens to be a lot of selfish people in this sport, but being the best that you can be is not a selfish thing.
Yeah. No, I love it.
And that's my opinion. I mean, maybe you have a different opinion or others do.
No, I love that. So 13 knockouts, obviously you're going for 14. That's not even a question. I mean, I'm hoping it is. I mean, that should put you in like eventually the UFC Hall of Fame. I mean, you've had a crazy long career. Like, when you look back at your, God, you've been in UFC now for 12 years. I'm guessing 13 years,
15 years,
15 years. Holy
2008.
shit. And you think of a pro athlete, if you have 7 good years, you've done amazing. You've way double that, and you could triple that, which is crazy. So when you look at your career, you're obviously leaving everything on the table every time you go out there. What's your most memorable fight so far?
Definitely when I fought Eric Silva, because it was in Cincinnati. I was the main event. He was, there wasn't official rankings back then, but he was considered like a top 10 guy and a huge prospect that was going to be going towards the title and everything. Yeah. And it was kind of me or him at that time. And the nice thing, so it was local for me. So with the main event, being the main event, my entire family, there's more family there than at my family reunion. So it was, that was just amazing. It turned out to be a great fight. Probably my most epic fight that I've had. So that played a huge part. The crowd was absolutely fucking crazy. And my kids got to come into the octagon after being on the main event and everything. My mom was there, and the celebration was just massive. So that kind of turned out to be the best in that sense. My favorite fight was when I fought Robbie Lawler, because I think that me and Lawler just made for a great matchup altogether.
He's a banger too.
He's such a banger, man. And, but I learned more from the Robbie Lawler fight probably than any other fight. Just his experience and the way that his brain worked and the way that it functioned within the cage was something I'd never experienced before. Like the way that I could the way that I could see that he's taking what I'm doing and processing it and coming back with something different. I was like, I'd never experienced that before.
Seriously, huh?
Yeah. And you kind of think of him as more of a brawler, right? And think of him as just a banger, but his intelligence in the cage absolutely blew me away. And I learned so much. And, on top of that, I lost my train of thought there.
But you're talking about Robbie Lawler. I mean, it's what he taught you is crazy, because when you think of a guy like that, most people think he's a brawler, like you said, but for his longevity of his career, he has to have a different element himself. So I love that you said that, because he's obviously, it's so crazy in that speed, in that moment, being able to, I mean, you think you're going in there and you're just going to do what your body is trained. You're not going to process and change your game plan as the fight goes on. So was that something you implied in fights going forward? Something you started to use? Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
Again, I learned more from that fight than any other fight. And that's where I was going, was that the last thing that I learned a lot was he was the first guy that I ever hit with everything I got, rocked him, knew that, one more hit and he's out. And the guy, he didn't smile at me, but, he kind of gave me a little like, yeah, you got me, but I'm going to figure that out and you're not going to do it again. And it slowed me down a little bit, because now I'm thinking like, how are you taking that? Because everybody that I'd fought before, when I'd hit them that hard, their entire mental processes start shutting down.
Yeah.
And his went up.
Which is crazy.
that was what really threw me off a lot in that fight. And again, I learned so much from that fight, man. He's just a brilliant guy. And, he doesn't, I didn't expect that out of him. We did like a whole media tour and everything. And, he never spoke that brilliantly. He doesn't speak like profoundly about things. He doesn't kind of come across like he's a big thinker and all this.
Yeah.
And, my dude, we're just going to fucking brawl, man. It's going to be all blood. And he's like, no, I'm going to use my ring intelligence and brains to win this fight. And he did it. And I mean, I would argue that I won the fight. I think it was
very close fight. Very close fight.
And I think I have a strong argument to make that I won that fight. But, either way.
But it was a great fight either way.
Yeah. Yeah. So
let's talk about, concussions. Have you ever like sat back and be like, okay, like these fights, I had concussions on these fights, or I haven't had like, is this something that you process and think of? Because obviously, you're young, you're in your 40s, you're hoping to be around for another 40 years, 50 years. Like, is this something that you process and think of in the thing, especially the way you fight? Because you're balls to the fucking wall. Like there's no limit to what you do. Is there something that you process and think of on a regular basis, or something that after the fights you think of, like, how does this go with your mindset with concussions?
Again, I'm accepting of it, right? That's where it all starts. Like I'm accepting that this is part of what I've chosen to do, and that is a risk. And again, it's about acceptance first. But there's only one fight where I had a legitimate diagnosed concussion, and I knew that I had a concussion. Is when I fought Johnny Hendricks, and he got a takedown within, I don't know, the first minute or whatever, and it concussed me. And I remember like standing up in between rounds and the whole room spinning, and in my head, I'm thinking like, dude, I have to find my corner and walk that way. And usually I would pick, of the three images that I see in my corner, I'd pick the center one and just walk there, right? And so I knew that I was concussed pretty bad in that fight. And I didn't even, at the time, I didn't really take it that serious. I was like, well, I got concussed in the fight and I'll be good here in a couple of days. But what would happen was every time I would sit up, I would experience like a vertigo type thing. And I think one time in the middle of the night, I woke up to go pee and I just fell over and I couldn't find my way back up. And my wife at the time, she was like, you got to do something. You got to go to the hospital. Right? So I went to the hospital. Ended up doing the whole old school concussion protocol where you sit in a dark room for 10 days and, no bright lights, no noise, all this. And, my kids are downstairs playing. I'm like, this is fucking miserable, man. It's the worst thing ever. So I went through that. And then when I moved out to Denver, when I was training with Elliot, there was a concussion doctor out there, Dr. Chad. I can't remember his last name, but and he gave me real concussion protocols, like the stuff that you're actually supposed to be doing. But yeah, so other than that, I don't think I've had a ton of serious concussions. I think that with my fight style, people kind of assume that I probably get hit more than I do, but I haven't been hit a ton, to be honest.
And you said that concussion was from a takedown, so it was a bang your head off the mat?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is most of the times. Like the concussions come in like odd spots. Like I've seen guys get concussions where they're going for a takedown and their head hits the knee or something like that, where their neck snaps back, right? So it's weird how some of the concussions happen. They're not even from a punch; it's just from the snapping of the neck, right? Interesting.
Exactly. And I'm actually part of a Cleveland Clinic study. I'm going July 1st actually to re-up on it. And I think it's like 800 combat sports athletes that they have in this study. They've been doing it, I want to say at least like 10 years. I've been going out there every couple of years, and we do like cognitive tests. We do like a brain scan, all these different things. And the last time I went, which was a few years back, I think I've missed a few years, but the last time I went, it was pretty fascinating because my scores had actually improved from the first time, which was amazing. And they're like, yeah, you're like in the 1% of people that, their scores improved. And now there's certainly a lot of things that could happen with that, right? Could just be the day, like you got better rest at night, a lot of different things. And that's why it's a long-term study. But I'm going back again and we'll see where my brain's at now. And, so I do keep track of it. Good, and I do think about it. And when I get hit hard, occasionally, in training is probably where you take more shots than in the cage, to be honest. if I do feel like I might be concussed, I do follow a protocol of I'll do a keto diet for about 2 to 3 weeks. And, I don't know how great the research actually is on that, but I've had some doctors tell me there's good research on it. The garbage that I've read on the internet says, you never know what you get on the internet, but there seems to be a lot of good effects correlating to helping for TBI and things like that. So
it just cleanses your body. Like since November 23rd, when I found out I had cancer, I'm on a moderated, like I'm pretty lean right now, but I'm on a moderated keto Mediterranean diet, and it's, there's so much benefits to it, right? There's so much benefits to it, especially if you do it properly. I mean, you can moderate with like 15-20% carbs in there, as long as they're good carbs, like sweet potatoes, yams, other stuff. But it's there are a lot of benefits, a lot of benefits. I've never heard about it.
I've heard some benefits for cancer where, it's harder for the cancers to grow and stuff. So you've been doing it like specifically
6. I've been on it since November 23rd. The day I found out to start the next day. I haven't had a cheat day for 7 months. But if you see pictures of me, I'm shredded. I'm 46 years old and I got a 6-pack. Like when you eat so clean, you feel amazing. I'm sleeping better. I'm eating better. You have more energy. You feel better. So the diet is a huge fucking part of anything we do, right? What do you put in your body is a massive part. So I never heard about the concussion side of it, but it's very interesting. I'm going to look into that. But I know there's a lot of benefits.
I know, like they've done some MASH studies or rat studies, where it did help for TBI. And I always like to be careful anytime I talk about this. First, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a scientist. Second, I don't promote the keto diet for anyone other than for medicinal use, right? Like you're using it for medicinal uses for your cancer, and I'd be using it in spots.
Yeah.
For specifically for concussion. Whether it actually even helps for the concussion, I don't know for sure, but it's worth a try.
Yeah.
It's not a big, I enjoy the diet, so it's pretty easy for me to do.
Yeah.
I always like to be very careful about that because, people kind of mix your words and start, thinking that you're telling them this is what they need to do when I'm a huge believer that, but not even believer. I mean, it's pretty factual that a healthy diet means, you're in a caloric deficit, period, right? Like you could eat fucking Skittles all day in a caloric deficit, and that's going to be a healthy diet, healthier diet than, a lot of the garbage is spewed out there. So I always like to preface with that anytime I talk about diet.
Do you fast or intermediate fast at all?
No, only when I do the keto, like just to help get into ketosis faster.
Yeah.
And again,
I do intermediate fasting. I do 16 to 18 hours every day.
Nice.
Nice. And but your body gets so used to it. I give myself a 7 hour window to eat, give or take. And I still have my 3 meals. I still eat everything. I'm 6'2", like 170, pretty lean right now. And it just works. And you know what?
It's awesome.
You know what you look at it, Matt, when you're put in a situation where it's like a life or death situation, and then you're looking in oncology and doctors, and they're like, do chemo, do this. And that's all they talk about. They don't talk about diet. No one finds the root cause of the problem. So I went on a mission to find my root cause. I went on a mission to find out what the hell happened over the last 2 to 3 years that caused this for somebody that was relatively healthy. It has no family history. I did genetic testing. It's not in my genes. Like, how the fuck did this happen? Right. And so when I went on that mission, I kind of broke down what happened. And part of it is like, okay, you got to rebuild it, to start from the root cause and to start rebuilding your body up again. And that's where I am right now, 7 months later. And I'm cancer free, knock on wood, and I'm feeling incredible. Right. So, but I mean, it could go with anything from, like you said, from just rebuilding your body, your injury or whatever like that. Right. When you're looking at
I'm always, again, I always try to be really careful about it. Like I've done intermittent fasting in the past.
Yeah.
I've done the 4-hour windows. I've done, like a warrior diet type thing where you only eat at nighttime.
Yeah.
A lot of different things. I've tried tons of different diets, and, again, I'm not an expert, but anytime if I was going to tell someone what diet to do, I always start with, if you're an athlete, first, like, you need carbs, right? As an athlete.
Yeah.
I did full keto for 2 camps, actually, because I was on that fucking reading about it all the time and thinking, this is the thing no one's doing. And I got the fucking secret, and it didn't work out so well for me. But the, so athletes, I'm very, very, nutrition is just so much simpler, I think, than people make it out to be, right? Again, you start at caloric deficit, you're fine, right? And then after that, it's like, what can you sustain? Like what can you do for your entire life? And a lot of these people that do, again, like when you're doing it for like a medical reason, like you are, I think it's completely different than when, that's why I try to be careful about promoting it to normal people, because, they'll do keto for a little while and then like, oh, I lost all this weight. And then they eat regular again.
Yeah. Of course.
Overweight again. Right. So that's why anytime it comes down to diet, I always try to make sure that, we talk very carefully, because
it's funny because
I want to do is promote.
It's funny because I do posts of like some of the shakes I make and stuff like that, which are super healthy. I mean, I'll do a shake where I freeze 5 shakes on a Sunday and I have them and I take them to work and I defreeze them. And it's literally a carrot, spinach, broccoli, pineapple, blueberries, all organic, half a scoop of protein, half a scoop of hemp seed. But I still, when I put the recipe, I still put a disclaimer. Please don't take this until you consult your physician, because I don't want to get my ass sued. So I put that as a disclaimer with everything I do. So you got to do it. I understand it. So fatherhood, what does fatherhood mean to you?
Fatherhood?
Yeah. Change it up.
So I usually start with, I'm in the business of building responsible, resilient adults.
Good.
And that's what people ask me, like, dude, your kid's going to fight? And I'm like, well, again, I'm in the business of building responsible, resilient adults. If that means that they're going to be responsible, resilient adults and fight, that's good. If they're going to be responsible, resilient adults and be accountants, good.
Yeah.
But it's not my job to choose what they do. It's not 100%. My job to push them into anything. It's my job to build responsible, resilient adults that know how to take care of a woman, that know how to take care of themselves, and are able to fulfill their own journey in life and fulfill their own self-worth.
Yeah, I love
that's fatherhood to me in a nutshell.
I love it. So I just saw one of your posts, and that was one thing I commented. Another venture I guess you're getting to now is vacation rentals.
Yeah, man. You got to you got to give me all the secrets, bro.
I've been doing it for 7.5, 8 years now. I mean, it's incredible income if you do it at the right spot. I mean, my places are all 4 seasons. So we have it in the summer, there's ski hills, and in the winter, they're mountain biking, and it's a village and all that stuff. Right. But
are all the years in Canada?
Yeah. Okay. Canada. Have you fought in Canada first off? Or you been in Canada?
Yes. I fought
in Montreal or Toronto?
Toronto.
Okay, that's where we're from, Toronto.
But I've been there many, many times. My girlfriend's actually Canadian. She lives in...
Where's she from? Hamilton?
Yeah.
That's like 20 minutes from us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
I might be there in a couple of weeks to go visit her. Like, she comes down here, I go up there. Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you meet her from Hamilton?
Online. That's how people meet these days.
Yeah, I love it.
It was actually during COVID that we met. So, no one was... really going out much. I know Canada was uber strict about things, so she wasn't able to go out.
Oh, buddy, it was horrible here. Fucking horrible here.
Yeah, so she wasn't able to do shit. I was basically, nothing changed in my life really at all, except there was less people on the roads, which was cool.
Yeah.
So, other than that, yeah. So we met on there, and it was pretty intense, man. Like, because we talked online for a few weeks, and I'm like, hey, why don't you just come visit me, right? And flew her down here, and that first pickup at the airport's like, what the fuck are we getting ourselves into? Is this fucking ridiculous? Like, are we making a mistake? Like, it's kind of a big thing to do just to meet someone. But she's amazing, and we've had a great relationship, and we're working on getting her down here for good.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions, 2 more questions, and I'll let you go. But I see he's making a comeback, which is looking crazy. I love it. I actually talked to Mark. It's funny because we emailed back and forth, and he was like, I want to be on your podcast. I'm like, great. And then I never heard from him ever again. He disappeared off the face of the earth. And this is cool. And that was like a few months back. And I'm like, Interesting. And then now I guess I just saw his post yesterday that he's got a celebrity boxing match he's doing now. Dude, is he training at your gym?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, he trains at my gym. He's in there like all the time, just punching and hitting the bags. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, man. And, a lot of people are gonna kind of talk shit about it, right? Because of his age and everything. But he's fighting an older guy.
Yeah, I had nothing to say to that. I think he's a legend, man. He's a fucking legend.
Yeah, he's a legend and all that. Just to address all those shit talkers real quick. The fact is, I've known him for probably about 10 years now, and he's in the best place I've seen him in. If you've seen him a few years ago before he went to rehab, people don't understand the amount of alcohol this guy was able to put down with the pills. And I mean, he was on his deathbed, and what he was drinking, the amount of drugs and alcohol he was doing would have killed 99% of people. Like this, you want to talk about the Immortal? This is the Immortal motherfucker. Like if I always say, if he would have taken care of himself from day one, he'd live to be 150. I mean, this guy is absolutely amazing resilience in his body. So the fact that he's doing so well, and this is what makes him happy, and this is what gives him more drive.
All the power to him.
All the power to him, man. Let's go. Let's see it. And he's
I
not
love
fighting.
that.
It'd be one thing if he was fighting, fucking, Jake Paul, like some young kid or something.
Yeah.
He's fighting an older guy that, has been through a lot of shit too. And they're going to have fun in there, man. That's what it's all about.
I love it. I mean, it just is that redemption story. And that's why I wanted him on my podcast, dude. That the redemption story of sobriety is it's so beautiful and so strong and so powerful, right? And so many people his story, if taught right and his story is passed right, it could help a lot of people, which I think is so special too, right? I mean, a lot of people could look at him for inspiration, right? At any age that you could turn around your life, right? Which is pretty amazing he's doing.
And I think that's one of the big key points there. At any age, like he's almost 60 years old. He's 57, I want to say.
He's got the abs coming back in. Good for him.
Abs coming back. I mean, I think people a lot of times feel like they're too old to change, right? Like this is it, right?
Yeah.
Bro,
don't accept.
Don't accept it, man. This guy is just, it should be an inspiration to everyone, man. Like what an amazing story that he's had. And I can't wait to hear him on your podcast. It is going to be a great one.
So quickly, let's get back to the last thing and then we'll end it off. When did your interest for vacation rentals and properties and all, like, how did that all start? It just came to your plate, or like, how did that all start?
He's funny, man. I was actually interested in it probably like when I first heard about Verbo in like 2010 or 12 or something, like many years ago, and kind of never pulled the trigger. But I did have some long-term rentals before the divorce. And then when we got divorced, I kind of lost all the real estate, and it's just been a rebuild ever since. So I had a good amount of wealth stored in those long-term rentals that all got liquidated. But when I wanted to start getting back into the game, I was like, Airbnb was coming up and was big, and I thought, I could go buy some long-term rentals and make, a couple $100 a month and, have most of the value in the equity, or I could do these Airbnbs and hopefully be able to cash flow a lot more and still get the equity and all the tax benefits and everything else. So, it's been a process of learning, right? Because Airbnb certainly has a much steeper learning curve, and there's a lot more details to it, and it's not nearly as passive, right? A lot of fluctuations and a lot of things to deal with. But it's been a lot of fun. I've trained my mom to be the manager and the operator. So now she's making a little bit of income on it. And it's a little spot for me and my family to go hang out. That's why I bought one in Gatlinburg. I'm sure you know the It's about one there because my family loves going down there all the time. So, and then the second one was that Texas property, which I love going down there and hanging out on the beach. So it just works out in so many different ways that it's just amazing, where my family and I can have places that we already go anyway, but now we got a place to stay, on top of just the wealth building, which, I've been in stocks for a long time, just because it's hands off and, but the stocks are fucking garbage, man.
Yeah,
and I think that, when you look at all the benefits of the the taxes, the cash flow, the equity. I mean, you just can't.
The equity. I mean, the value of properties. We'll talk off air numbers wise, but I mean, the value of properties, I don't know how it is there, but in Canada, I mean, over a 5-year period, I mean, you're 5, 6, 10 timing Xing on your property value. It's incredible. Properties that we paid 100,000 for are now valued at 600,000. Properties you paid 500 are now valued at 2 million in 5 years, which is, you see that and it's like, holy shit. It almost makes you wish you invested more when you had the opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
And but my mindset is I just don't see it ever stopping. It might not have that same trajectory, but it's always, real estate always goes up. It might take a little longer. It always goes up. Absolutely. Always goes up. And as you're building up your equity in the property, and especially if you could run it properly, like we run it, God, most times all the vacation rentals at high 90% occupancy. And why that is we use booking.coms, we use the Airbnbs, we use all the websites we possibly can to fill them up. And then when they're empty, friends, family, you build an email list and you just liquidate them. So if I have 10 nights open in one of the units, I'll liquidate them. I don't care if somebody's paying $50 a night, $75 a night. To me, it's that night being empty is costing me money. So I just liquidate them and just fill them up. And that way we could always have bodies in there at all times. Right. And it does a little bit more wear and tear to the place, but it overall, you make a lot more money. When you look at that could project every unit another $2,000-$3,000 in rent in a month. Right. Which is what you want. You want to just maximize your rent potential. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you using direct booking also?
Yeah. Direct booking. We do Airbnb, we do booking.com, we do personal through our email list. And we have a whole bunch of different avenues, and we just try to capitalize and fill it up as much as we can. To me, and especially where we rent, where I have 4 actual properties all in one area, it's more of a higher end area. So when I first went in there, everybody had a certain price point, and they're like, you can't rent for under this price. And even if it's empty, and I'm like, fuck that shit. I want to make money here. I'm here. I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years. I've been self-employed, 27 fucking years. Started when I was 19. And to me, it's just, it's passive income, it's cash flow. I want to make sure that every single month I have between this and this is coming to my account, no matter what. My bills are taken care of, and I'm using that, build the equity there so I could purchase more at the end of every year. And that's how it works with every property. You know, it is. Now, all of a sudden, you have the equity of 2. You start taking that cash flow, you put it into an account, you save it. After 12 months, 24 months, you have a plot plus that equity, boom, buy another one. And it starts building. And you get to the point where it's like every year you could use that and flip it onto another one, keep building up, right? And in the end of the day, I mean, one day when we're not here, I mean, having those properties, it's all for your children too, right? I mean, you're setting them up for the rest of their lives. And they're set, especially if it's a rental income and if it's set properly. I mean, they're set.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's something maybe off air I'd like to pick your brain about 100%. Direct booking, because that's the next step that I need to take to keep scaling these properties and making them work better. You know, and like I said, that's what anybody listening needs to understand. Like, it is not passive, right? Like when you buy an Airbnb, that's something I didn't understand when I did. Like, you are buying a business.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Versus like the long-term rentals, which I've done before too. And, it's not really a business. Like, you just own a property that you're renting out. And, there's certainly, you got to have some business acumen. You got to be intelligent about it and everything. But the Airbnb is like it's a full-on business. And that's why I didn't have a direct booking website. I didn't really understand that when I started. Yeah,
it's a full business. And it's, I mean, it's cleaning staff, and it's flipping, and having a maintenance person being able to maintain the properties if needed and stuff like that, because you're not going to physically be there, right? So there's a process to it. But once you streamline everything, like I go up to my properties maybe once every couple of years. Like, I'm never there because we have our own place for the family. So we go up there, like, it just runs itself. Nice. Money comes in the account, and that's where you want to be. Like, passive income is a massive part of everything we do, right? Where could our audience get a hold of if they want, see you, get you on other podcasts? Like, give them all your links and all that. Do you have your own website, or just through social media?
I don't have my own website. I'm going to be building it soon, because we're going to be building a lot of online courses. Okay. That's sort of the next level. Like I said, my next path in life is to be giving back a lot more. And that's the way I can reach the most people, through online education. Yeah. what I do and what I know the best, which is MMA, all martial arts. So that'll be coming soon. Working hard on it now. It's a lot of work. Who would have thought? But everything that's a lot of work, there's a reason why it's a lot of work, because it pays off. So we'll be doing that. In the meantime, social media, I am the Immortal, Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, the Immortal Matt Brown. And then, of course, I have my own coffee brand, theimmortalcoffee.com.
Okay, we didn't even talk about that. So I saw that. When did you start that? Let's talk about that for 2 seconds. When did you start that?
I think that was 2019.
And where did your, it's a business that's it's funny because you're seeing a lot more independent people starting brands now, but 2014, you got your top dogs in that industry. What got you to start doing coffee? Were you just a passionate coffee? It's funny because Elliot Marshall is a passionate coffee guy.
Yes. Yeah.
You do, huh? Okay. So where did it all start? Where did that passion start?
Actually, Elliot was a part of helping that start.
Seriously?
Funny enough. So me and him and a couple other guys, we were coaching Ultimate Fighter with TJ Dillashaw. When TJ was a coach, we were assistant coaches. He brought us out there. We're all staying out there. And in the mornings, we're waking up to go get coffee. And I'm like, bro, just go get some fucking Starbucks. What are you doing? And they're like, they're searching for the best coffee place around. I'm like, bro, coffee's coffee. Let's just go. They taught me about coffee. It was Elliot and Daryl Christian and TJ were the main guys that all taught me. And I went and we got some real coffee. And I was like, dude, this is fucking tremendous. Not only does it taste better, I feel better. It's just the whole experience is better. So it just coincidentally, maybe 8 months later, my friend, he had a coffee business in Florida and he was sponsoring me. And he said he was having some trademark issues. And he said, I'm going to have to get a new name for this. And he said, what do you think about the Immortal coffee? And I said, dude, I think it has a fucking good ring to it. Let's do it. And so we just partnered up and ran with it ever since.
I love it. So do you distribute in actual retail locations? Is it all online?
Just our gym is the only retail location right now, but we do a lot of wholesaling where we do
to actual restaurants and stuff.
Yeah, to restaurants and coffee shops, and we do a little bit of white labeling, and then we mainly just sell online though. For the actual product itself is our main source of revenue.
Very, 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 very cool. And what's the website for that?
theimmortalcoffee.com.
Okay, I'll put that on all the show links.
If you know anything about coffee, it is premium coffee. So do you know anything about how they grade coffee?
No, go tell me.
Okay, so my business partner has taught me about this. So there's 3 different grades of coffee. There's 90 and above is premium, and then there's whatever the intermediate is. I forget the other names, but there's but
how do they grade it?
So they actually have coffee tasting, just like wine tasting. Yeah. And again, the name's not coming to me what they call it when they do the tasting, but there's an actual name for it. And they just sip coffee, out of spoons, whatever. And they do these taste tests.
Awesome.
And, there's these expert coffee tasters, because apparently coffee is actually the most diverse flavor on the planet, even more so than wine. Right.
Yeah. And
so they do these coffee tastings and they grade it, and we only get premium, 90 and above coffee. So it really is I don't try toot my own horn. It is actually really, really good coffee. If you're looking for, just something to have some caffeine in it, there's a million brands out there.
Yeah.
But if you want the best caffeine, the best rush, and the best flavor, we got you covered at the Immortal Coffee.
Do you guys ship worldwide or just through the US?
Mostly worldwide. We ship to Canada. There's some places, I guess we're not shipping to Nigeria and stuff like that, but Australia, Canada, UK, places like that. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll put everything in the show notes. And we'll when we get off, we'll have a little conversation too quickly, but this has been awesome, brother. I appreciate you coming on. A great conversation, and you're building a massive legacy for yourself as an athlete. But I mean, I love your entrepreneurial juices, because it's so important to have both, right? Because I mean, there's a lot more to obviously when you do hang up the gloves, to building out from the homes to the coffee to your gym to online courses. So you're bringing a lot of offers to yourself that are going to give you opportunity to continue to have an amazing career in different sides. And like I said, give back, which is going to be awesome as well. So I appreciate you, brother.
No, thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Great show. And hopefully we can do it again sometime.